I am ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille.
What's up, guys? So I'm here today to talk about a subject that I really do not know a lot about, and that is classic films. So I've been watching quite a few classic films lately. I'm trying to get well versed in the subject leading into the Oscars, going back and revisiting some Oscar-nominated classics from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, just all through the decades to see kind of how films evolved over the years and how the Oscar races have gone. And it's just interesting to go back and look at these old films. And I would never claim to be one of those kind of pretentious film snobs that knows everything about the classics and the movies. Like, my knowledge in film basically stops at the 70s. The only movies that I've really grown up with before the 70s is like Psycho and Wizard of Oz, and beyond those two classics, I really don't know a lot about the older films. So, I'm trying to go back and just revisit a few movies from the past, ones that are talked about often, and I find it a struggle to go back and revisit some of these movies because while I do appreciate them for what they are and for when they were made, they don't always resonate with me on the level that I'm sure they did for many people back in the 50s. And people may look at that and say, oh, well, you just don't know how to appreciate fine cinematic art. But I find it struggling to connect with those. Like, I watched Casablanca last year, and I appreciate it, and it had good performances. I didn't get it. I don't get why it's held up to such a level, and I get it's a romance movie, probably one of the first of its kind as far as just great cinematic romances, but I didn't get it. Like, I don't get why it's so great. So I just want to talk about classic films, and I just want to talk about them from, I guess, the idiot's point of view, someone that doesn't know a lot about classic films, and I'm just going back and trying to revisit some of those. All right, so I just want to talk about I've three films that I've watched recently. All black and white films, all classics from the 40s and 50s. So the first one I'm going to talk about, and this one I didn't watch and review for any kind of Oscar race because this movie was not nominated for an Oscar. I watched it because it was sent to me by the Warner Archive for review, and that is the classic The Thing from Another World, the Howard Hawks production. So this is released by the Warner Archive, and what I will say before I get into this review is they do excellent work on their Blu-ray updates, so I highly recommend those guys checking them out. And purchasing from them because they do amazing artwork on the covers. Just a really underrated distribution for physical media that I think more people need to check out. So let's go on to the movie, and it's going to be very difficult to talk about this movie without comparing it to John Carpenter's legendary classic, because I think John Carpenter's The Thing is in the top 10 horror movies of all time, if not the top 5. It is a masterpiece. So to compare this movie, which it is based on, which is also based on a book, is a little unfair to this movie because this movie did come first, and it did create the blueprint for what Carpenter was able to take and just go to the 10th degree as far as cinematic filmmaking. This was the blueprint for that, and right off the bat, it has those vibes. It's in the Arctic. It's a bunch of scientific researchers. They see UFO land. They check it out. They cut him out of the ice. It's all just very basic, and it lacks. It has that kind of monster movie feel. It doesn't have what Carpenter did with The Thing is it took the crash landing alien monster movie type feel, and it also combined it with a more drama, suspense heavy body snatchers kind of thing. He combined two monster type movies together. Which worked extremely well for that movie. This movie is not a body snatchers type situation. Like, he's not taking over different people. So it doesn't have that drama and suspense and just incredible tension that the Carpenter movie does. It's just a straightforward monster film. They cut him out of the ice. He comes out. He attacks him. He runs away. He comes back, attacks him again. The whole movie's played a little goofy, in my opinion, and it's hard to say. This movie was made in 1951. All right. I understand it was made in 1951, so that the alien is basically just a guy in a in a suit that's running in there, and they catch him on fire, and they pretty much light the entire room on fire, and he runs away, and then he comes back again, and it's all played pretty cheesy. So it's fun. It's a fun movie. I'm not gonna sit here and call it an all-time classic horror film because it is not. Like Carpenter's movie supersedes this one in every single way. So that is the thing from another world. But I do highly recommend checking this out from the Warner Archive if you are going to watch it, because it is an incredible release with incredible artwork. And definitely check those guys out. So this next movie I'm going to talk about is pretty much widely regarded among the cinematic community on several lists across boards. I think on IMDb list, just several lists from so many outlets and so many people across the history of cinema as the greatest movie of all time. And I don't know if it's the greatest movie of all time, but like, when I went into this movie, I was like, I don't understand how it's going to live up to that for me. And it absolutely did. This movie is a masterpiece. It is Citizen Kane. And this movie was made in 1941 and feels like it could have been made last week. I mean, everything, the subject matter in this movie, yeah, it's aged in the sense of, it's about a newspaper tycoon, and we don't really read newspapers anymore. So you just apply that to today, and pretty much it's kind of like a news station tycoon or something, or some kind of media outlet on the internet. And it feels so relevant to today. And I think that's why it holds up so strongly and why it continues to hold up so strongly. And another reason why it's incredible is, for one, this movie was written, directed, and starring the same person, Orson Welles, and this was his first movie, and it's a masterpiece. It's incredible. And one thing I'm going to talk about is just the technique, just the cinematography, the technique, the incredible shots that he uses. There's some shots in this movie that I know I've seen in other movies over the years, but to think about how it all pretty much started here, and he's like using them to perfection. Like, he perfected these shots. And yeah, they're used in other movies, but the way he uses them in this movie, I have never seen anything like this before. And to see a movie that's almost 80 years old and do things that you have never seen before, and I've been watching movies for 30 plus years, that is pretty incredible to me. And the story itself too, like, it follows this kind of non-linear flashback sequence structure, and it's very kind of Tarantino in that way. I mean, you can see where Tarantino gets some influences here, and it goes in. It's pretty much just the story of this guy who's kind of rags to riches, and his story of how he rises to fame in the newspaper world, and just how he ends up falling. And it's a very personal story. Like, it goes in through his relationships with his wife, and he has a girlfriend on the side, and there's just some really kind of this nice relationship drama intertwined with the drama of his kind of rise to fame and to the top, and what that means to him and everything. And it's really just kind of a tragic story of a man who wants it all, but that can't ultimately get to it. But it's an incredible film. And it's one that, again, it shocked me, because a lot of movies, a lot of classics, like I said, they just don't resonate with me on the level that I feel like they should. For being classics, that usually means like it's a movie that is still going to take you today to places that the same places it did back in the 40s. And this movie absolutely does that. And I think that it is everything that people say it is. I'm not prepared to say this is my favorite movie of all time, but Citizen Kane is absolutely a masterpiece. And if you have not seen Citizen Kane, I definitely recommend that you check it out. It's only 2 hours, and it moves by like that. The character journey, just the performance by Orson Welles, the direction, everything, it's technically flawless. So that's a 10 out of 10 movie to me. I reviewed it yesterday on my Instagram page. It's a 10 out of 10 movie to me. It's perfect. I absolutely understand why when somebody says this is the Citizen Kane of this, they're speaking about it. They basically use Citizen Kane as another word for masterpiece when talking about another movie, and I absolutely agree. So definitely check that out. So let's move on to the next film on my list, and it's a movie I just got done watching before I went to film this video, and that is Sunset Boulevard from 1950. So, and it's kind of like a noir murder mystery. It does flashbacks as well, but it does one big flashback. It shows you the end of the movie in the beginning, and then it flashes back to the beginning. And this is a really good movie, but if I'm being honest, it didn't grab me as much as I was hoping to. Like, for the plot itself is very interesting, very engaging, and it's kind of it's a thriller. It's a thriller in the 50s, a noir thriller. It's a Hollywood story, but it just didn't get me like I wanted it to. So it's a movie that I might go back and watch again some days because I do appreciate a lot of the aspects of it. I think that the performance by Gloria Swanson, who's basically playing an an aging actress in her 50s that was very famous during the silent film era, and has gone back and now has all this money. She's living in a mansion, and she wants to get back into film. So she meets this writer who's trying to break into the industry himself, and they get together, and he's trying to write this movie for her, and they're back and forth, and then they eventually get romantically involved, but he's in love with somebody else, and it's kind of like her obsession with him, and how like he can't she doesn't like him to go out at night, she doesn't like him to leave her ever. She's very kind of codependent on him. And it's kind of just this kind of psychotic relationship story that ends in a murder. And I don't think that's a spoil, but the movie kind of opens with the murder. It's a very interesting movie, and I definitely see why it's a classic. I see why people love it, but it didn't hit me, and I'm not sure what it is, because I think that Gloria Swanson is fantastic in the movie. I don't think that William Holden and some of the other actors in it are that great, in my opinion. I don't think anybody reaches the heights of the performance that she does during the film, which may be to the film's detriment, because it almost feels like she might be in another movie. Like she's kind of this larger than life, just grandiose performance, and everybody else is just kind of acting. And that might be my discrepancy with it. That might be my problem. Like I said, I just got done watching this movie right before I went to film this video. So don't hate me for not loving Sunset Boulevard. I do apologize if you're a huge Sunset Boulevard fan, but I would give this movie, honestly, if I was going to grade it, probably like an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a solid B. Which, like I said, this movie's held up as masterpiece status. So, and it's funny that both Citizen Kane and Sunset Boulevard, while regarded as masterpieces of their time, neither one of these movies won for Best Picture that year. Something upset them in both years. So that's a very interesting comparison to both of them. So saying that, I'm done with my classic film breakdown. Those are the 3 films that I watched in black and white. I may come back and do more of these as I watch more classic films, just to kind of walk you through my like I said, an idiot's thought process through the classic films. But like I said, The Thing's a really fun monster movie. Citizen Kane is a all-time classic, and Sunset Boulevard is just good to me. So that is my video, guys. If you like this video, please drop me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel for more content like this, and please comment below your thoughts on any of these movies if you've seen them before. Am I crazy for not liking some of them? Am I crazy for liking them too much? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.